From KPFK in Los Angeles, California, Valley Free Radio in Florence, Massachusetts, WNUC in Detroit, and BikeTalk.org worldwide, this is Bike Talk.
Bike Talk.
Welcome to Bike Talk. I'm Taylor Nichols.
And I'm Nick Richard.
Hey, Nick. You know, I'm sick of reading the newspaper. I cannot read the newspaper. So if you are also sick of reading the newspaper, listen to podcasts like Bike Talk. And if you give us a positive review on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, we will send you stickers. We're about to send stickers to Sean in Montana. Hey, Nick and Taylor, I've been listening to your show every week for a year or so, and I enjoy the episodes. I listen on Spotify, and I just gave you a well-deserved 5-star review. I'm in Montana and live car light. I am able to bike to work year-round, even in winter, partly because I live close to work and partly because I wear mittens and a scarf. You got to love that. Keep up the good work.
Scarf callback.
Yeah, that's right. And the mittens callback. We did the whole panel on riding in the winter, and we've been talking a lot about Minneapolis lately and Alex Pretti and all of those things. And we have Andy Singer on, who is a cartoonist and a member of the St. Paul Bicycle Coalition. And Andy's been involved in the struggle, in the fight for a long time. Tell us what's going on in St. Paul.
The big thing was they had the Alex Pretti memorial rides throughout the country, and here they had a really huge one. I don't know how it compares to other rides, but it's definitely the biggest ride I've ever been on in my life. I mean, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and it was nice. You know, it was very empowering and peaceful, and local police stayed away from it, which was good, even though we completely blocked certain streets for probably an hour. It started at Washburn Park, which is in front of the Minneapolis Art Institute, and people darn near filled that park. And then we biked past where Alex was killed, which was in front of or near Glam Doll Donuts. And then we bike jogged over to Portland Avenue and went past the Renee Good Memorial, where Renee Good was killed. And then we went down to Minnehaha Creek Trail, which is a popular bikeway, and we filled that for probably a half hour. And we ended at the VA, which is where Alex worked. It was nice, you know, it was a nice ride. I don't know whether it accomplished anything, but it was a show of unity and a show of people.
It brought people together. And in just a minute, we're going to introduce Rick Rosales, who is from Cycle Solidarity. And it sounds like that's what the kind of ride was. It was a solidarity ride. We're all in this together.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like the bike community, this past weekend, I went on an alley cat that's been going on for 27 years or more called the Stupor Bowl that was originally put on by bike messengers and still is to some degree. And that had a theme of fuck ice, and they were giving out whistles and, you know, various other stuff. It was anything that you do in the Twin Cities now, it's kind of an overriding theme is the fact that, wow, we're being occupied by this federal army.
And I can't help but go back to George Floyd. I know that wasn't a federal offense because it was not ICE, but still, Minneapolis has been in the crosshairs for a while.
Yeah, we just sorted out that issue in terms of trying to institute reforms in the police department and rebuilding stuff. A chunk of Lake Street got burned to the ground. And, you know, it sort of feels like, oh, we've recovered from that. And then suddenly this federal army comes in and starts killing people. So,
Wow. Well, Andy Singer, thank you so much. How can people find your work?
I have a website, andysinger.com. Or you can just type in Andy Singer cartoon into Google and some things will come up. I mean, I do a lot of cartoons that have absolutely nothing to do with bicycles, but I still draw bike cartoons.
Great. Andy Singer, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. You know, he talked about the Stupor Bowl, and last week was the Super Bowl. Biking is kind of breaking in to the Super Bowl. There still are just nothing but car commercials on during the Super Bowl. But Tom Flood started to change that by making a Super Bowl commercial that focused on safe streets and bicycle infrastructure and how we've gone so far to the moon, but we can't have a kid ride to school.
It wasn't actually in the Super Bowl.
No, it was not. You're right. Tom Flood's commercial was not in the Super Bowl. It's on the internet, and you can listen to it here on Bike Talk.
Curiosity and human ingenuity have taken us places we never could have imagined. We have taken to the skies, flown across oceans, rocketed into space, and seen the world from the heavens.
We choose to go to the moon in this
We even put a man on the moon.
not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
And together, we have celebrated our achievements, proving that the possibilities are infinite. Distances that were once just science fiction have become a reality. So as we continue to push the boundaries of our imagination, we must ask ourselves, with all this progress moving us into the future, why can't our kids walk, bike, and roll a single mile to school like they did in the past? We can change this. We just continually choose not to.
So that was an audio of a commercial that Tom Flood made, and the graphics, the pictures over the audio are really wonderful. Obviously it's John Kennedy and the moon launch and the moon landing and all these amazing things that our society has done. Yet our society has also created this environment where children can't ride their bike a few blocks to school because cars dominate almost all of our public space.
Yeah.
Also on the Super Bowl, the first part of the Super Bowl presentation was powered by bicycles. And there was a commercial on during the Super Bowl that actually featured mountain biker Kate Courtney. And so bikes are breaking into the car-dominated world of the Super Bowl, and I'm glad to see that.
I don't know how much encouragement we can take. It's a connection,
It's a start, put it that way. We were just talking with Andy Singer about a bike ride that brought all kinds of bikers together. With us now is Rick Rosales, otherwise known as Captain Jack Sharrow.
That's right. Great to be back.
Who's from Chicago, but he's actually in studio, or maybe I should say in garage, right now with me. Rick, welcome back to Bike Talk.
Yeah, it's great to be here live. I'm just enjoying this beautiful city. I'm seeing lots of cyclists and scooters. I've been taking the bus and train, and so happy to be here.
Are you riding a bike at all while you're here?
We haven't yet. No, this is going to be about 100% transit type trip.
That's okay. Although I got to tell you, the biking here is better now than it is in Chicago.
All right. Yeah, well, I'll have to take your word for it. But it's been your buses and your trains have been surprisingly impressive, on time, reliable. So
good. Tell us a little bit about cycling solidarity in Chicago.
Yeah, so we started during the pandemic and did just solidarity rides of mutual aid and bringing people together, just pro-social rides, celebrating third places in Chicago, and most recently doing some vendor buyouts to combat ICE and how they've been terrorizing our neighborhood. And unfortunately, most recently in Minneapolis as well.
And the vendor buyout is?
Yeah, so we have 3 different initiatives. It started out where we would just raise some money and ride around the city and buy out street vendors to keep them safe from ICE. Then we turn around and pass out the food to the community as just a beautiful combination of mutual aid and solidarity and donating the food. And then that spawned into our street vendor bike rides where we did on Saturdays and Sundays. People joined in and we rode around the city. People ate and drank whatever they want. We'd buy out the rest of the food and then donate it again. And then our wonderful partners in the Street Vendors Association told us there's street vendors at home that are too scared to go out. And so that started our third initiative, which was home buyouts. So then we ride to their houses, buy out food from them. They don't have to leave. They can stay safe. And then we donate that all to the community.
Wow,
So
that just sounds like win-win.
it's beautiful. Everything about it is beautiful. The volunteers that ride love it. The vendors obviously love it. The people who receive the food. It's a literal cycle of solidarity.
Wow, I love that. We were speaking recently about Minneapolis and about how people are having trouble paying rent
Yeah.
because they can't go to work.
Yep.
And so they're raising money to help families pay their rent while ICE is occupying St. Paul, Minneapolis.
Yeah, what ICE is doing in our communities, the visible part is very easy to see and touch and stand up in solidarity. But a lot of the other effects of just the fear, people not going to work, people scared to pick their kids up from school, they're losing income, nobody's going to the restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is just compounds on the effects of ICE, and so that's where it takes community to kind of step up and contribute in their own individual way.
Right. It worries me that all the communities aren't seeing it.
Yeah.
Certain neighborhoods don't see ICE. Certain people don't see the effects of these foreign invaders taking over. I mean, some people just don't see it. So I think it's important that we are, showing the half of the population that doesn't see it what is actually going on.
Yeah, and there's Know Your Rights campaigns. There's Whistlemania, where community members make zines or Know Your Rights and put whistle packages together. And so it's the partnerships and the collaborations from all these different organizations and being loud about what we're doing. That's where we're getting a lot of donations to our organization from all over the country, where maybe ICE isn't in their backyard.
Right.
Maybe they have no effect whatsoever, but they still want to be a part of the solution. They still want to support. So there's tons of opportunities, obviously, all over Minneapolis and certainly Chicago and LA and New York and all over the country.
In Chicago, are you seeing ICE on the street like they are in Minneapolis and St. Paul?
No, not to the level that they're in Minneapolis. What they're saying is it's like their quote unquote normal operations. So they are very much present, but not the occupying force that you're seeing in Minneapolis. When we started, and the reason we started, they were terrorizing our neighborhood, but I think they took it up to a whole other level in Minneapolis, unfortunately.
Can I ask you where you are in Chicago?
I'm in South Loop. So I'm about 15-minute bike ride from Pilsen, 20 minutes from Little Village, and those are just two of the epicenters of our Hispanic population.
Right. And Rick, before we let you go, how is biking in Chicago? We just had the winter panel on talking about riding in the winter. How are the bike lanes? How's the sidewalk along the lake there?
I will tell you, I absolutely love it. I love biking in the winter. It's so chill. The solitude, the crisp air. As long as you have the right gear on.
A scarf and mittens, right?
Mittens for sure. Yes. The scarf, yeah. The bike lanes are hit and miss. I've been taking the lane a lot, and drivers have been actually pretty chill about it because they see we've got nothing to work with, and so it hasn't been a big deal. Our critical mass, I don't know if you saw on social media, we had a bit of a blizzard during our last critical mass, and so that was kind of wild. But
wow.
Yeah, but it's not bad.
How many people showed up for a bike ride in the
There's like 20, 30 of us.
Yeah, that's
Usually
pretty
there's
good.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
It was not quite the show. But I did want to mention I participated in the Alex Pretti Memorial Ride in Chicago, and it was a wonderful turnout. CPD showed up against our wishes, but whatever. It was a beautiful show of solidarity. We biked to his memorial at the VA hospital. Some nurses and folks came out. It was beautiful to talk to them. They were super appreciative that we showed up. Chicago Bike Ride Now is the organization that organized that, so I was happy to be a part of that.
Critical mass in Los Angeles used to be hassled by the police.
I've heard.
But lately, they have been there in support of the ride and sort of managing it a little bit, keeping it under control, but also keeping the bikers safe, which I think is a positive progression of police involvement.
I've heard the same in Chicago. I've heard it one year where they had a paddy wagon and threw a bunch of cyclists in the back as a show force. But yeah, in recent years, they've been largely unpresent, and when they are present, not an issue. So that I take that as a positive.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, there has been a progression, like you say, Taylor, that the police used to attack the critical masses, and
Right.
now it's different. There's more legitimacy, I guess.
You were kind of laughing at the bike being a part of the Super Bowl commercials, but that's part of it. We've talked before how there is a bias, a media bias, a police bias against bicycles. And so maybe as bicycles become more a part of Super Bowl ads, a part of the zeitgeist, some of that stuff does change.
Yeah.
Well, we will see, I guess. Rick Rosales from Cycle Solidarity in Chicago, thanks for coming over to my garage.
Thanks for the warm welcome. I love it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I have a friend who lives in Chicago that I've known since high school. And I go to visit him frequently, and I have a folding Dahan. I bike down to Union Depot in St. Paul. I get on the Amtrak. I get off in Chicago. And over the years, I've been doing this for many, many years. It's like it gets better and better and better. Like there's more bikeways and stuff in Chicago, and I super appreciate it. And I know from experience that a lot of people went to a lot of meetings to get every one of those things. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
A lot of meetings is exactly right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a lot. I'm privileged to know a lot of people that are advocates and got a lot of that progress going. So yeah, I agree.
Today's show is a little bit like Johnny Carson. We get Andy Singer in the hot seat, then he moves down the couch, and then we get Rick on.
Right.
Really nice, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. The number one reason that more people don't ride bikes is because they don't think it's safe. And we know that cities have the tools with which to make our streets safer. And we also know that one of the biggest impediments to making our streets safer is lack of political will. So it's really rare when you come across a politician or a civil servant or a city employee who is willing to take a leap and say what needs to be done to make our streets safer. There's a few people out there that do it. Laura Friedman, who's a congressperson now, and others. In Los Angeles, it's Kenneth Mejia, who is the controller. And it's really great when you go to events on the street, big open street events, and the mayor or the city council person has their tent up. You often go by there and see their staffers. Well, at Ciclavia recently, I went by the tent for Kenneth Mejia, the controller for the city of Los Angeles. And who was manning that tent? But Kenneth Mejia. And he agreed to come on Bike Talk. Kenneth, thanks so much for manning the tent at Ciclavia, but thanks for coming on Bike Talk.
Thank you, Taylor. I actually attend all of them that we staff. So it's a great way to connect with the community because tens of thousands of people show up. It's easy, it's free, and we're celebrating a car-free environment and just celebrating street and pedestrian safety and mobility. So all about it, and happy to be there all the time.
Absolutely. Maybe we can start with you explaining what it is that the controller does, because I don't really know.
It's a great question. So the city controller is the city's accountant, auditor, and paymaster. Essentially, we oversee the city's finances, and pretty much we're making sure that you know where your tax dollars are going. And we also are making sure that we're protecting our tax dollars and we're using them in the most efficient and effective manner. It's a watchdog position that combines transparency and accountability. The transparency one is the one that we focus on a lot because
Right.
our office is not really given the resources to do a lot of accountability, but transparency in itself is accountability because when you put information out there to the public, it organizes people, whether it's other elected officials or the public, to use our information that we made known and bring that accountability. So think of us as the city's watchdog.
You just posted what everybody makes in the city, which I found really interesting, how much money the mayor makes and even how much money you make. That was a very transparent thing to see. I didn't realize that city council members make as much as they do, and the mayor and even the controller.
That's all dictated by the charter, which we're all, going through right now, charter reform. Actually, council member salaries are dictated by how much LA County Superior Court judge makes.
I didn't realize that. You were the first CPA in a long time in the controller. You're also the first ever.
First accountant and auditor ever to be the city's accountant and auditor. So there's never been one,
Wow. That's crazy to me. It seems like that's where they would start.
From my personal opinion, it's used as a stepping stone to go to other places, and it's just been used by other politicians to just hold office. That's why they haven't known about the controller's office or where the money's going.
Right. Well, we'll get into that in a second. But I do want to start with what really attracted me to want to talk to you, which was a post that you put out there recently about why does the city spend so much money on lawsuits when they could use that money to make our streets safer? And I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about how the controller can make the streets of Los Angeles or any city safer.
It's a very good question. So I'll just talk about the investments that the city does, whether it's related to transportation, to public works infrastructure, things that create the environment for street safety. The city has a huge budget. It's like $14 billion. And the amount that we actually invest in capital improvements is very tiny. It's about like 6% of that total. Sometimes it's even less. That's what we budget. We budget this 3%, 6% amount. But what we actually see at the end of the year is we spend way below that. So you think like, whoa, okay, the city's budgeting actually $800 million, for example. The 12 months past, you'll see, wow, only 20% of that has actually been put to use. And that is what I try to do to show that how much are we budgeting? Yes, budgeting is good, but how much are we actually spending to improve the lives, whether it's on mobility related, pedestrian related, things like that. So my point is it's very tiny. It's very tiny.
Right.
And when you look at departments' budgets, for example, like street services, right? They handle the potholes, sidewalks, the trees, the trimmings, and all that stuff. They only get 2.8% of the entire city budget. Transportation, 2.6% of the entire city budget. Street lighting, barely 1%. Actually, street lighting is 0.6%, right? That's why everything's dark in LA.
Right. Yeah.
So you see this small investment, you see this budget, right? And the budget's already tiny. But when you look at the actual spending, it's even tinier. So now that goes to the lawsuits. When we invest so little, and then when we spend so little on it, that's why we sort of have these infrastructure related liabilities, which has amounted to over 300 million in the past 6 years, which is enough to like fund some of these departments,
Right.
and fund some of these projects. My view is that the city, and we're actually auditing the city right now because of this, is that we need to figure out how is the city really handling its risk management practices for these liabilities. The top two areas are policing for liabilities, and then it is related to street services. The question is what are we doing to address these issues at its root cause? And so as it relates to the infrastructure related, we already see through the numbers and through the accounting that the investment, the dollars in to actually tackle these are very low. You'll actually see incidents where people will get hurt in the same location,
Right.
and it should have been fixed, or they removed a bike lane or a barrier and someone got hurt there a year later, right? And so that's sort of what we're seeing.
Well, that brings up what happened just a week and a half ago here in Los Angeles. Reagan Cole Graham, a 37-year-old mother of three, was riding her bike with her husband and children, and she got hit in Playa del Rey, an area of Los Angeles near the beach, where there had been a bike lane. And there was an uproar from a few, or at least enough drivers to have the bike lane taken out. And she was killed in that exact same spot. So does that open the city up to a lawsuit from her family?
I can't speak on the litigation or the related issues like that. Obviously, anyone who has been hurt, whether through the actions of the city or by the city, should definitely, consult an attorney and go about the next steps forward. But there's always that risk that if there were areas that the city have been notified or they actually had something, that is their duty to protect those, that could always lead to a liability. That if a liability did come, then I'm not surprised by it because the city's crumbling infrastructure and the way we invest in sustaining and maintaining and building infrastructure is just not there at the levels.
Or choose not to, right? I was going to say, yeah.
If there was a bike lane there before, or if it's political will to implement, fixing something on your street, it's really comes down to political will. And even when it comes to the budget and the spending, it's political will. And that's one thing that we have to keep remembering. It's really up to the elected officials to push that. And then, for us, like we provide the numbers and the transparency and the recommendations, but it's those policymakers, it's the executives who are in these positions who can actually drive that change forward.
Well, I would argue that it's, again, someone in your position to make someone in my position aware of how the city is choosing to spend their money. Because we always hear that the city doesn't have money to put in a bike lane or doesn't have money to make that bike lane protected or to paint it or to fix the streetlights.
Yeah. And when we actually dig into it, we try to figure out, well, why does it cost XYZ, right? And that's something that we're always trying to figure out. Like, why does it take so long to do this improvement? Why do we need to do a whole year or 2 years worth of outreach? Like, how come we can't just
Do
It's
it,
already been
right?
approved.
Right.
It's already there. Let's just do it. And that's some of the things that we're trying to figure out. I also know curb ramp costs is a big thing to a lot of issues. And so that's another area too that we're trying to dig into as to why it costs so much, averaging over 50,000 just on one corner. We are suffering financially, but it depends who you're talking about in the city or what department you're talking about. If it's police, there's no budget deficit. The city will just spend, like
Right.
they'll just find the money. When it comes to like a small department getting potholes or sidewalks repaired or infrastructure, oh my God, this is crazy. Like we have no money now, and that's why I'm telling you all, it's political will. So
Right.
objectively, we are in a budget deficit, but the city will always find money for certain issues or certain departments when they want to. And
Right.
it might be whoever's the loudest in the room
Right.
or who it is, but it all comes down to a political will game. And unfortunately, in these situations, it's always lives being lost by getting hit by a car,
Right.
falling and tripping and breaking your leg or a light falling on you, things like that. And unfortunately, it hasn't really clicked in for the city. And that's why we're auditing City Hall for that.
Right. You recently left the Democratic Party. One of the things that we talk a lot about on the show is biking a left or right issue? How do you see it? I know that you left the Democratic Party for your own reasons, but how do you see issues like bike lanes or protected bike lanes or just infrastructure for multimodal transportation, whether it be scooters? Is that a left-right issue when it comes to city politics?
No, I think everyone wants safe streets. That's common sense. And I think if you talk to any politician, they'll tell you that they want safe streets. When you look at the data, the amount of traffic deaths, right? It's huge. It's more than I think homicides right
Right,
now in the
right.
city. And so
I mean,
I
we're
don't think
we're
it's
only in
just
early February, and there's already been 3 deaths in the city of Los Angeles, 5 in the county, and 9 in Southern California. 9 street deaths.
yeah, it's a matter of political will, right? It's priorities. That's how people should look at it and really pressure their electeds is what do you prioritize? If you say you truly value street safety and mobility and pedestrian safety, then show me your budget for it. That's what you got to ask. And it doesn't matter what spectrum you're on.
One thing I've learned already just by talking to you is don't just show me your budget, show me what you've actually spent.
Exactly. That's the benefit of having an accountant or a CPA in this job because before, and I see these politicians talk about like, we're investing and budgeting so much money. I'm like, wait a second. Like,
Right.
what are you actually spending on? So, yeah.
Well, our lawyer, James Pokras, who comes on the show every now and then to talk about legal issues where it comes to biking and safe streets, has often mentioned exactly what you just brought up, that why does the city choose to spend or why does the city budget money for lawsuits rather than just fixing the infrastructure? So maybe this will start to trickle down and start to affect how people voice their opinions and then how they vote.
hmm
What's next for Kenneth Mejia?
The next thing is just making sure that we keep doing a great job as controller, given the limited resources that we have, continue to provide transparency and accountability to your tax dollars and advocate for you all, especially as it relates to so many of these preventable, unfortunate events that can result in, severe harm or even death. We're just going to keep doing that.
And after the controller?
I'll just, stay as controller.
Okay, I just didn't
Yeah.
know. Right.
Yeah.
As I said at the beginning, there are a few politicians out there that are voicing the importance of safe streets, but too many, like I felt when the bike lane was taken out in Playa del Rey, that the mayor at the time, Eric Garcetti, did not support the issue, and thus the bike lane was taken out.
Yeah. Political will is a big thing. And, elections are the way to really test people on what they truly value or not, right?
Well, Kenneth, so I want to thank you for your time and for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you, Taylor. Take care.
Well, that was really eye-opening for me that only 6% of the budget is spent on infrastructure and only 2.6% of the budget in Los Angeles was spent on transportation projects. I think that's crazy personally. but they spent 300 million on lawsuit payouts. That just goes to show what people like our lawyer, Jim Pockrass, have said before. Why does the city choose to spend money on lawsuit payouts and not on fixing the sidewalks and the roads? Next up is Alison Stewart, who runs an organization called Femmes and Friends. Cycling is kind of a male and kind of a white male sport, but riding a bike is not. Our next guest is Alison Stewart, and she runs an organization called Femmes and Friends, which is a bike ride for what she calls bike curious, which is a term I really love. Alison, welcome to Bike Talk.
Happy to be here, Taylor. I should mention that I'm also the bicycle mayor of Toronto. Because Canada is officially bilingual country, I myself am bilingual. The femme is the word in French for women.
Right.
And it's also a play on words for, to represent women and femme, because many trans women, for example, refer to themselves as femme. So we wanted to sort of just showcase all women and their friends. And really, as you mentioned, even despite the wide diversity of people who bike for a wide range of reasons, there still is that predominant view that, white men bike. And certainly women still have some work to do to achieve gender parity when you see who's biking around.
Right. Well, it's really funny you say that, because we've been talking on the show a lot recently about Elsa von Blumen, who is a bike racer from the 1880s and the first woman who ride her bike around the world. So you're right, it's not really just a white man's sport. And I'm so glad there is an organization like Femmes and Friends that is opening the door to different kinds
I'd like
of
to
bike
think
riders.
that we've done some work in that area since the 1880s.
Well, yes, and let me just say, Toronto.
Exactly.
So we are in Toronto, Ontario, and Toronto has really seen a bike boom, really, since, really 2015, really visually started to see, other women like me biking to work, right? I mean, biking isn't just a sport, right? I mean, myself and many of my friends and other women, we bike to pick up our groceries, we bike to go to work, we bike for recreation, we bike for socialness. And Toronto has seen a growth in different groups of women who bike, right? So now, for example, we're seeing a lot more recreational and sporting bike groups, so that women who, for example, want to learn how to race, there are now groups of women that they can connect with. The mission of Femmes and Friends is really, we all have different interests in how we bike, but we really wanted to bring more women into the fold, because we find biking just so joyful. And so these rides are purely social. They're not long distance. They are all about bringing people together. All of our little rides include meeting at a park, going for a ride, having a little break for water. We then end with a communal picnic, arts and crafts. We ride with music, bubbles. It's really family friendly.
Right.
And it's also to showcase, because there's nothing like when you see a group of people biking, listening to music, having a great time in the middle of the day, people stop and look and they want to join you. And so we kind of want to spread that joy. And one of our rides is to celebrate World Car Free Day, which is in September. So, in Toronto, the weather's starting to get cold. It might be rainy. So as an opportunity to try to encourage people to consider biking instead of driving to work, consider biking to connect to the subway.
Right. We just did a whole panel on winter biking, and you have a ride coming up on March 8th, Sunday, March 8th in Toronto. Will it be cold and snowy then in Toronto?
Well, so Taylor, let me say, so the event you're referring to, it's the only event we do that is not a ride. It's an indoor bike fair. And this year will be our second annual bike fair. We bring together various community groups that are either run by women or have specific programs for women, femme, and trans. And we bring them in as indoor space, so we don't have to worry about the weather. So we have a ground floor for all the community groups to put up their tables for folks to mix and mingle. There'll be refreshments. We'll have presentations on, how everything you need to know about biking. We'll have someone from Toronto's cycling and pedestrian unit. We'll have various women's recreational cycling groups. So we're really lucky because we'll have a fourth floor of a building for the actual biking. We'll have a learn to bike. So for those that haven't learned how to bike, we often take it for granted that everyone learned how to bike when they were a kid,
Right.
Well, that's not the case. Like same with swimming. And so for those that never learned to bike, but may want to bike, I've often heard that people, they get nervous and they're like, I'm dying to try, but I don't know where to begin. And I'm embarrassed that that I'm 39 and I don't know how to bike. And so that is really what it's, and it's so joyful. You don't need to have a can bike to show someone how to bike. So there's a learn to bike. We also have a range of bikes. So we'll have a local bike shop, Cycle Solutions, and Pedal that will be bringing different kinds of bikes for us to use. We are bringing our own bikes so folks can try the different kinds of bikes. And we also have a couple of women's cycling groups that will be organizing a few skills and drills, for those that have more bike skills. So it's really just an opportunity for women of different abilities and ages and interests to come together around their love of bike or their interest in connecting and learning how to start biking.
Right. Without the pressure.
No pressure.
It sounds like a wonderful afternoon. It's from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. in Toronto.
Yes.
I think the address is 163 Queen Street, East Toronto. That's Sunday, March 8th, correct?
That is correct. One of the reasons that we're able to offer this event is because of the Friends for Life bike rally. So I have participated in their annual ride. It's a 600-kilometer ride from Toronto to Montreal. That raises awareness and money for people living with HIV and AIDS. And it's the largest volunteer-led fundraising bike ride. And it's founded on supporting community, and it's absolutely wonderful. And it's through my connection to them that we are able to open up the space and bring in more women, because we're trying to diversify folks that join this ride. And so, for example, when people are nervous or like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, biking 600 kilometers, I can say, well, if I can do it, anyone can.
600 kilometers, that's a long way. That's what, 400 miles, something like that?
Yes. Although we do it in 6 days.
Sure.
And it's very well supported. But through this group, I never thought I would ever be wearing spandex, let alone a bib. And
nothing wrong with spandex. Let me just say that out loud, okay?
There's nothing wrong with spandex. But it's like just to help demystifying, because when you are not used to that, like when I first started getting ready for this ride and I went on, I think, 2 group rides, and I was very intimidated. I didn't know anyone, and they were mostly men and wearing Lycra. And there I was wearing my, yoga shorts and, a t-shirt. But it really is a wonderful community. And we have, we'll have representation from the Friends for Life bike rally. And it's just really joyful. Last year, it was our pilot year. We had like 70 participants. We had 9 community groups. And really, it was just a really great opportunity for people to discover biking, and for those of us that already bike to meet other groups and make other connections.
I always say, you wouldn't ski in jeans. We used to ski in jeans in the 70s, but now you wouldn't ski in jeans. So sometimes when you're biking, I think spandex or Lycra is appropriate.
I agree. And I wouldn't want to do a 130-kilometer ride with loose fitting linen shorts.
Exactly. Alison Stewart, thank you so much. Femmes and Friends, it's an organization in Toronto, but really you can reach out to, multiple different organizations in your city and find other women who are biking and learning to bike and promoting biking.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Thank you, Taylor. We're at Femme and Friends on Instagram for our website.
Femmesandfriends.ca.
Yes.
That was Alison Stewart of Femmes and Friends. And, a couple of weeks ago, we had on Sonia Chapnick talking about a tandem captain training program. The other half of Sonia's tandem is here with us today, Rob Kadota, who's been on the show many times and is the chair of the Los Angeles Bicycle Advisory Committee. Rob, welcome back to Bike Talk. And tell us a little bit about how the captain workshop went. You were part of the curriculum building, but also captain.
Yeah, I showed up early to make sure all the bicycles had air in the tires and the brakes worked. I introduced the concept of ABC Quick Check because if you're ever going to get on a bike, especially with somebody who's visually impaired, let's make sure it's safe.
Absolutely.
We had probably 5 captains and 5 stokers, visually impaired people, and it was a nice turnout. And interestingly, some of our captains have extensive tandem experience. Right. I'm relatively new to the world of tandem, and we had a tandem captain show up from Orange County, and he found us and joined us. And interestingly, his work has been working with people who have MS.
Oh, wow.
And can't ride a bike anymore. So kind of muscle control versus visual impairment. And that added a whole different flavor and kind of awareness and sensitivity to the process that was really insightful and exhilarating and instructional.
Were these people who were already comfortable being the captain of a tandem, or were they learning to be the captain of a tandem?
It was a mix. So we had some seasoned folks who were there to be co-instructors, and we had some people who are like, hey, I've done hikes with visually impaired people, and I like to bike, but I've never done the tandem thing. So let me check this out.
Well, I wonder if you could tell me a couple of the quick principles that were being taught to people who are going to be captains of either disabled or visually impaired stokers.
Sure. One of the things that we do is make sure people just understand the mechanics of a tandem. So turns are wider, and when you have a passenger on, braking takes a little bit longer, starting takes a little bit more effort. So we have people ride a tandem on their own and then have them ride on the back of a tandem with an experienced captain, and sometimes ask them to close their eyes. And that has oftentimes been the biggest deal, the biggest adjustment. And so suddenly the need for verbal cues is made very clear. So bumps, ready, go, left turn, right turn, coasting. When you're on a bike on your own, you don't think about coasting, you just do it.
Right.
I know when I was a stoker with my eyes closed and we were leaning into a turn, I'm like, do I lean with? Do I counterbalance? And, it's learning a little bit of keep your shoulders level with the handlebars so that you're not fighting the turn. You need a little bit of lean to make a bike turn.
Right.
So it's trusting that the captain has that in control.
So on the back, you do lean with the turn. Is that what you're saying?
With the turn, right. You try to keep your shoulders parallel to the handlebars.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. I said to Sonia when she was on the show that I've ridden a tandem a few times, but I found it kind of difficult. I mean, I did it with my children, with my kids, and I can imagine doing it with an adult with more weight back there. It would be a little bit tricky. Is it scary for the captain, or are you pretty comfortable now because you've been doing it for a while?
You have to anticipate your changes. So coasting now, you have to allow people to hear the word, process the word, and then act on it. You have to anticipate it a second or two so that they can understand what you're saying.
Wow.
We had 2 visually impaired people this last time out, and one a little bit heavy and worried about his weight and being able to be physically active, and we were able to accommodate him fine. The other person had been a dancer at Disneyland for decades. and
Wow.
but had recently lost his sight in the last 5 to 8 years. And so was confident about his leg strength, but being back on a bicycle was kind of a new and different experience.
Right.
So really interesting in terms of how people come to their blindness and their level of physical activity. Everybody is a little bit different.
You had mentioned there were a couple of other tandem education programs around the country, or at least in North America. I wonder if you could mention those.
Sure, sure. And there's quite a bit of information out there, and I'm just delving into a little bit deeper, but there is a U.S. Blind Tandem Cycling Connection group, a group out of Ontario, Toronto, Trailblazers Tandem Cycling Club. And then there's a Northwest Association of Blind Athletes, and they have instruction guides for captains and stokers. It's relatively new to me, but wanting to build and make a good experience for all captains and stokers.
Was Sonia your stoker ever or not?
Yes.
And is she strong? Is she good?
She's strong. Yeah, she is.
I figured she was.
One of the things that struck me in some of the reading about some of the best practices of other organizations is if you haven't been on a bike maybe ever, or it's been a really long time, you might need an orientation to the bike itself because you can't see it. And that hadn't crossed my mind of giving them a tactile tour of the bike that they're about to ride.
Interesting. Yeah. I bet they love that. It made it a lot more comfortable. And bikes have changed in the last 10 or 15 years, you know?
That's right. That's right. Our captain who is working with people with MS was using a electric assist bike and much more of a cruiser bike. And he had accommodations where he could use Velcro straps to help people keep their hands and feet on the pedals and handles because you lose your muscle strength. And so just some of the accommodations, the easy accommodations that we can make with people to make them as comfortable as possible when we're aware and when we're listening and paying attention.
Going back to Sonia, she talks about what pure joy it is to be on the back of a bike and enjoy that freedom that she doesn't get to feel oftentimes because of her sight impairment. And so it's a real gift that I think
That's right.
captains like you are giving people. So Rob Kadota, thanks a lot for being a part of the program and coming up with the curriculum for the program. And thanks a lot for coming back on Bike Talk.
Taylor Nichols, thank you for being you.
That was Rob Kadota. Again, Rob is the chair of the Los Angeles Bicycle Advisory Committee, but he is also captain of a tandem, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
And for an update of what's going on all over, not just in Minneapolis, here's Charlie's news.
Hey, it's Charlie with a week's news. WHYY, which is the leading public media organization in the Philly region, has put out an article that points out the especially dastardly effects that New Jersey's new e-bike law will have on many immigrants. Aside from what we know already about the racial profiling that is bound to arise, the article says that according to the senior vice president of the Insurance Council of New Jersey, insurance could cost riders several $100s per year, which will be prohibitive for many low-income riders who rely on e-bikes as their main form of transportation. The Bike Coalition of Greater Philadelphia tells us about the 2026 National Bike Summit and Lobby Day coming up from March 24th to the 26th in Washington, D.C. Lobby Day is the 25th, where participants will meet with their representatives in Congress to advocate for important local issues. The Greater Philly Coalition reminds us of the importance of having a strong presence on Capitol Hill to get the important things funded. From Cycling West, there's a new report from the University of Utah's Metropolitan Research Center which claims that traffic calming is a strong foundation for quality of life. The report reviews 700-plus studies to debunk a previous paper by University of Utah professors that claimed that traffic calming is a roadblock to quality of life. That debunked paper, full of claims that are, quote, inaccurate, misleading, and unsupported by credible evidence, is currently being used to push a bill in Utah to take power from Salt Lake City and give it to the Utah DOT. The bill pushes for wide lanes which encourage speeding and proposes to remove some bus lanes and protected bike lanes in Salt Lake City. From Boston Cyclists Union on Instagram, 20-plus volunteers took to Commonwealth Ave to clear out parts of the bike lane that were still snow-covered after weeks. Apart from making the bike lane passable, BCU wanted to show Boston the power of community and the importance of mobility justice.
I went to a Super Bowl watching party at my sister's house, and I met up with a family friend, Michael Rucker, with Cycling Club in Northeast Los Angeles. What neighborhood are you in?
Glassell Park, Eagle Rock area. Glass Eagle, as I like to call it.
And you're part of an organization?
There's a group called the Cycling Club. Between the winter and summer solstice, that's when they actually do their rides. This is the first full season that I actually did. I think it's April to October. And it's around Halloween when they end because people dress up in costumes on the last ride.
So what is it, every week?
Yeah, every week, every Wednesday. It starts at a bar called the Hermosillo that's on York. And I just found about seeing them riding around and then people in the neighborhood and kind of joined in and did it for the whole entire past season. They have a few rides that they kind of circulate. Typically 15 miles, but they kind of mix it up.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good distance.
Good distance, and it's also like at a good speed where it's people who are kind of more beginners, or there's a father who brings his son on his front seat the whole entire time. So it's not like crazy fast speeds, but definitely a good group in between recreational and kind of like diehard rider.
Yeah, like I could do that. The ride is sometimes too big.
I would say, yeah. I would say that, the first couple times that I went, the group was about, 60 riders, and it has ballooned at times to definitely over 100 riders. Usually it starts just before sunset, and we're riding at dusk, and that feels pretty good and safe. And then once we are at 100 riders and the sun is down, that's where I feel like it can get a little hairy at times. I think it's one of those things where we get sometimes so big that we're pretty stretched out. The organizers are really good about the route, and they lead us, and they're good at communicating with each other, but there's somebody in the front, usually somebody in the back. But if we miss a light together, then there's this middle group where if there's nobody there to kind of stop traffic for the group, I will jump in to make sure that group kind of goes through. But because we're in a big mass, I think a lot of people go talking to their friends totally makes sense, and having good times and not thinking we're still bike riders in a car dominant city. I've been riding for 15 years now, and had a few instances once where I was doored blocks away from my house by a guy. 2 lanes went to 1 lane, and he just didn't see it when he opened up the door, and I got doored. That sent me to the hospital. Another solo night ride, where pickup truck sped past me and then did a sharp right, and I ran into that. And then during the daytime on Eagle Rock Boulevard in my neighborhood, where a guy was, I was in the bike lane, and I don't know what was going on, but he was honking at me as if I was not in the right of way, even though I was in the bike lane. It was clearly defined, and I basically slammed on my brakes and ended up going over my handlebars and breaking 2 ribs in that instance. That was the latest one.
So you are not complacent.
I'm hypersensitive to everything. I'm thinking about the group as a whole, and also hoping to help the organizers, because I think, what started off as a really nice, smaller kind of group has ballooned into a bigger kind of ride, because I think people have a desire to ride together as a group, and I really love that part. But I think that there's that feeling that, we're one big group, everybody sees us, but I never assume that cars are going to see us or respect us. That's what it comes down to.
The more people riding bikes, the more the visibility should make it safer for people riding, right?
My hope is that that's the case, is that the more riders out there, the more people respect bike riders, respect that we're out there. Personally, I feel like I'm still kind of seeing a lot of people not paying attention to bike riders. Even though we're out there, the respect of bike riders is not necessarily there. My hope is that will change.
Thanks for talking to me.
Very welcome, Nick.
Good show, Tim.
Yeah, it was great to have so many people on. It was also nice to have Rick in studio, in garage.
So that's it, right?
I think that's it. I think our work here is done, Nick.
All right, let's thank the people.
We want to thank Andy Singer, Rick Rosales, Alison Stewart, Kenneth Mejia, and Rob Kadota. And of course, we always want to thank our regulars, Julie Richard, Charlie Lighthizer, Josh Haglin, Kevin Burton, Amy Ziering, Lindsay Sturman, and Stacy Randecker.
Thanks, Taylor.
Ride safe.
This episode of Bike Talk is sponsored by the law offices of Pocras and De Los Reyes, with offices in Los Angeles and Bakersfield and serving all of Southern California.
Bike Talk is a project of CRSP and the Los Angeles Eco-Village Institute. And that was Bike Talk. If you have a story, a tip, or a topic, head over to biketalk.org and send us a message. Talk again next week.
Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedals, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedals, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Oh, get that car out of my way. I wanna ride my bike today. It keeps me fit, gets me there. I won't go stinking up the air. Leave behind the daily grind. Now let your mind unwind. Live its life, pretend to life. Better get yourself a bike. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedal, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Get on your bike, sit on the seat, put your feet on the pedal, and ride it all around, ride it all around. Get that car out of my way, I wanna ride my bike today. It keeps me fit, gets me there, I won't go stinking up the air. Leave behind the daily grind, let your mind unwind. Live its life, pretend to life, better get yourself a bike. Oh, got yourself a bike. Oh, got yourself a bike.